Well, essentially, what the 1960s did was they said that we have to destroy the bourgeois order. We have to destroy it all because this is the only way that we're truly going to be free. So we have to destroy all categories, all standards. We have to destroy even the basic concept of what is right and wrong because this in and of itself is oppressive. And so now you have a situation in which, as we said earlier, it's not that there are no values for the young to take on. They take on all kinds of values. They're just all the wrong values. And what you see in this movie is this girl, she wants to be perfect.
Right.
And you know why she wants to be perfect, Drew? Because nobody has taught her something very basic as, you know what, we all have original sin, and perfection is impossible, which is something I probably learned at the age of 5 when my parents sat me down and explained to me what it means to have a sinful nature, what it means that only Jesus is perfect. So can you imagine if you haven't given the children that context, how are they going to have a sense of self? Where does their sense of self come from? Where does their self-esteem come from? So they need it. They're at the mercy of the world. They're at the mercy of trying to win over some kind of public acclaim. How do they deal with trying, for example, to be physically perfect, which is one of the standards we are promoting all the time? How do young people deal with a standard that is unattainable, even for adults? It is unattainable. They then feel that they are failing, and they know that they are failing at something that isn't even right, because no matter what, we can't eradicate the conscience, right? We can't eradicate that they have the image of God within them. So this leads to complete chaos and confusion.
All right, Doctor, I'll tell you when we come back, I'll open the phones, I'll take a few calls for you, and we'll also get some final thoughts. How do we protect this generation, our children? How do we help them to grow up to be responsible adults? And what do we do with those adults who don't want to grow up? And we'll address those issues and more. Our toll-free numbers here, 877-ROAM-777, 877-ROME-777. I'll be right back.
Substance without the static. This is the Drew Mariani Show on Relevant Radio.
All right, 12 before the hour. Good afternoon, everyone. My guest today, Dr. Grace Vuoto, taking a look at her latest article, Whatever Happened to Adults? And it's a great question. We've got the young trying to tell a lot of adults, grow up, please. I beg you. I need you. And you got these adolescents, you know, as the baby boomers amongst us still are, generally do not listen. They don't like to be told what to do. They do not take responsibility for their mistakes. And we find ourselves at a very interesting crossroads. Check out Dr. Vuoto's article at relevantradio.com, keyword Drew. You can also check it out at edmundburkeinstitute.org. It's worth the read. Doc, let's go to the phones. We'll take a few calls. We'll start in the South today. Sarah, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, okay. Hello.
Hi, Sarah.
I'm going to have to say that I think that it wasn't just the 60s. I mean, I was born in 1947, and I don't think my parents were grown up. I mean, not being, emotionally available to each other. There was no models of conflict resolution or forgiveness, and they went to church, and there was not that firm respect of woman. And when I go back in my family tree, I realize that there was that same thing that was going on, that from generation to generation, no conflict resolution. And so to just say it was the 60s that people didn't want to grow up, I think it happens in every generation.
All right, interesting point. Doctor?
Well, that's a very good point, but I would have to say, though, that for the most part, if you had individual examples, say in your own family, where you didn't see those role models, the role models were quite clearly defined outside of an individual family. So I'm not saying that, it was perfect. We had a golden age before the 60s, by no means. However, we did have social standards, and we did have social roles, and we certainly had a concept of what it is to be an adult. And that concept, even if not everybody was able to uphold it, it was nonetheless a socially defined category. And that concept, it basically was a biblical one, which is you're supposed to be a guide to your children, And if you were Christian, you understood that you were supposed to be a guide ultimately to lead them to God. That was your role as a parent, as an adult. Now, I think that parents think that their guide is almost to act a little bit like a nursery. You basically take care of the physical needs of kids, and then you act as their best friends for the rest of their lives. Well, there's a category that's missing, which is the category of the adult parent. And so I would have to disagree with Sarah, and even though it wasn't perfect, even though not every single family had this structure, I think there's no denying that overwhelmingly society as a whole, in movies, in books, in the schools, from 1850 to 1950, we had those categories. I mean, I'll give you an example of the classic 1950s kind of a comedy, Happy Days, where you clearly saw defined roles amongst the parents, where parents were acting as parents. And we now look upon that as a bit of a golden age, as something that we've lost, a skill and a knowledge and a wisdom that we no longer have.
All right, Sarah, thank you for your call. We'll go to Austin, Texas, and say hello to Darnell. Hi, Darnell.
Hi, Drew. I'd just like to make a comment. My children, I have 4 children. They grew up in a real stable family. My husband and I married 50 years. We've always been church-centered. They achieved the American dream. But when they went to that cesspool called college, that's where they lost their God-given ways that we tried to teach them. And so something has to be done. And it's not just public colleges, it's Catholic colleges, too.
No, you're
Something has to be done with that because that ruins our youth.
Absolutely, Darnell. I want to say how much, first of all, I applaud you for everything that you tried to do. And let me tell you this, as a former college professor, I would begin my classes by saying to the young people, if you come from a family where you were taught Christianity, I guarantee you that within 4 years, you will lose your faith unless you are proactive to safeguard your faith, because the next 4 years are going to be basically an indoctrination against faith, against morality, against the ethics that you have been raised with. And so there is definitely what we call a brainwashing, a propaganda machine, which are currently our universities. That's one of the reasons I ultimately left, because I felt that even as a professor, you're required to, for example, bring to light all sides of an issue, be so-called objective, when in reality what I want to do when I'm in front of young people is not be objective. I want to tell them what to do.
Hey, Darnell.
I want to be subjective.
and I wonder what, I have grandchildren that are getting ready to go, and it scares me to death because it's not better, it's worse than it was. So, what are parents to do when they send vulnerable, good kids to these places?
Well, two things, Darnell, and I'll let Dr. Vuoto give you the final word. One, make sure you form them well. Make sure you implant good moral, lessons to those children. They know their faith, and then pray for them. Those are the two things I think we as parents can do. The rest, they're gonna face a lot of great threats in a lot of those arenas there. So you need to support them spiritually. Doctor, I'll give you the final word.
I would have to say this too. We have to give them the intellectual tools as Christians too, because what happens is their brains expand dramatically in those years, and so their brains are being filled with a lot of anti-Christian propaganda, and unless they've already been taught the intellectual bulwarks of Christianity, they will fall prey to the propaganda that they're subject to.
That's a great point. My son wants to be a professor of history, and I told him, well, you better learn the right history. You got to make sure that you got the right foundation. I'll be back, guys. Stay with me. My guest, Dr. Grace Vuoto, and check her out online at relevantradio.com, keyword Drew. You can check out her article. I'll be back.